Welcome back, everyone. Hello. We are in room 1, and here on stage there's Jonas with me, and he's talking about lead scoring in Mautic in a second. Just for you attendees, quick information. We will have a Q&A afterwards, so please post all your questions into the Q&A section. Leave comments on the chat, and I'm very sure Jonas will answer all your questions afterwards. And I think there's nothing more to say from me. Jonas, the stage is yours.
Yeah, so let me share my slides real quick. All right. So I hope you all are ready to hear about lead scoring. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Jonas Ludwig. I recently did my master's degree in industrial engineering and management. And while doing my master degree, I also wrote my master's thesis about lead scoring in Mautic. And also in the beginning of this year, I started working as a Mautic developer at Leuchtfeuer Digital Marketing. So let's sum up real quick. What is lead scoring? Basically, lead scoring is a method to prioritize leads or to assess the lead quality of individual leads. Basically, why do we do this? To reduce the time and the resources we spend on bad leads. There's this prime example of lead scoring where we have a B2B company. They have a sales team and they reach out to all of their leads. And of course, as you can see here on this slide, not all of the leads are actually good leads. And we want to save this time to only focus on the high quality leads that are have a high chance of becoming customers. Also, lead scoring ensures that we reach out to our leads at the right time when they are ready, so that we don't go on their nerves before they even consider purchasing, and also that we don't reach out too late when they already purchased something. How does lead scoring work? Like in a nutshell, first of all, we analyze the data of our past leads. This can be, first of all, the attributes, like in which industry are they working, which position do they have, what's the size of the company. And then we also analyze their actions, their activities, then we can track. For example, which websites did they visit, which forms did they submit, did they download any white paper. And then we figure out which of this data is an indicator for high quality leads. And then we use this new insights to assess the quality of our new leads. I will talk about this, the slide after the next slide, in more detail. But before, I wanted to show you the use cases, like the most common use cases of lead scoring. First of all is scoring the interest of a lead in a company. But of course, many companies have different products. For example, we sell, let's say, jeans and t-shirts. In this case, it might be interesting to know which exact product of ours are they interested in. And this is where so-called product scoring comes into place, where we develop our own lead scoring system for each of our product groups or business units or whatever. And the third common use case is to score the interest of not a lead, but a company in our company or products. This might make sense in a B2B context because normally there are more people, or often there are more people involved in the purchasing process. So if we just have a look at one lead, this doesn't really give us a good context whether the company is really interested. So it might make sense to go for a higher level there and score at a company level, including all the leads of a company. Yeah, so now let me introduce you to two different approaches of lead scoring. The first one is the traditional lead scoring approach. And like the most important piece of traditional lead scoring is the so-called scorecard. Basically, in the scorecard, uh, each lead has a score. And in the scorecard, we define how many points they get for executing this activity, this action, for example, submitting a form, and also how much point they get for having this attribute. For example, if they are the CEO of their company or if they work in this industry. Yeah, and that's basically step number one. We create a scorecard. Then, based on the scorecard, we calculate the score of all our leads according to their past actions and their attributes. Step number three is then, once our leads have scores, we want to have a threshold and to define, yeah, if they reach this threshold, they are considered high quality leads. They are considered leads that are likely to purchase. And step number three, once a lead exceeds the threshold, we want to provide them with like specific marketing measures or sales measures. Like the prime example is having a sales team reach out to them. So the second approach is predictive lead scoring. And in predictive lead scoring, we use machine learning models to assess the quality of our leads. And in step number one, we gather and prepare the data of our past leads. Then, also in step number two, we want to rate our past leads according to their quality. This can be, for example, this lead purchased versus this lead didn't purchase, or it's a good lead versus it's a bad lead, or you can also rate them from 1 to 10. There you can have many options. And when we have prepared these two pieces of data in step one and two, then we can use this data to train a machine learning model based on it. And yeah, once we have done this, we reach the end of the training phase. And then we come into the fun part, the usage phase of our predictive lead scoring model, because then we can fill the trained model with data of our new leads, and it will automatically give us predictions about the quality of these leads. And this prediction depends on which kind of rating we use. For example, if we have this rating good lead versus bad lead, then the model will also give us a rating. This lead is likely to be a good lead, or this lead is likely to be a bad lead. And once we have this rating, we can use the rating to act upon it. For example, by reaching out to our good leads. So now let's have a look at traditional lead scoring first in Mautic, because I think that's what you're all interested in. Step number one is to create a scorecard where we have all the points and define which action or attribute is worth how much points. This is actually done out of Mautic because it's basically just analyzing which lead data like correlates with bad leads or good leads. And what also might help is just asking yourselves or marketing employees how much point to give for which action or attribute. The next step is then calculating the score of each lead in Mautic. And then we have two options. The first one is to use the point actions. You will find this under the points area in the Mautic menu. And there you can define specific actions and how much points a lead will get for executing this action. Then we also have another option, and this is to use campaigns to give the points to leads. Why does this make sense? Because first of all, like using point actions is super convenient, of course, but it's actions. And as I told you, also attributes of leads might be quite interesting to score. And this can't be done under point actions. So we need to create a campaign. And I created the campaign where I used a separate score. Let's call it the attribute score because it's about the lead attributes. And then I reset the score every 24 hours. And then I calculate the score according to their attributes. There's this campaign action where you can add or subtract points to a score. And so you're good to go. Why do I reset this campaign and this score every 24 hours and recalculate it? It's basically to take into account changes in the attributes of a lead. All right, once we implemented the point system into Mautic, we then have to define a threshold when leads are actually considered qualified leads. And this is also done out of Mautic. My recommendation is to calculate the scores of past leads at the time when they become customers or they were accepted by the sales team. And this gives you an idea of roundabout what's the right threshold. And so you can go for this one, test a little bit, and then you should figure out the right threshold. And step number 4 is then to provide leads that exceed the point threshold with specific marketing or sales measures. Then we also have 2 options to implement this in Mautic. First of all, we can use point triggers. There you can define the threshold, and under the events tab, you can then define the actions that should be executed once the threshold is reached. Option number 2, and I actually prefer this option, is to use segments where you use filters to add leads that exceed the threshold into the segment, and then you can start a campaign up on this segment. The reason why I prefer this is that you can use extra filters. Like for example here, one filter is that you go just for the that they have to reach the threshold, but also be in the scoring segment. And this way you can make sure that the actions are only executed on leads that are actually meant to be scored. All right, there are a few extra recommendations for traditional lead scoring in Mautic. First of all, I would recommend to implement a feedback loop. Basically, with a feedback loop, you ask your sales team, if you have a sales team, otherwise you need to implement another kind of feedback loop, but I will stay for the prime example. You ask your sales team about the quality of the leads that you pass to them, of the qualified lead. And this will help you to improve your model because you get feedback how it performs, like your lead scoring model. And also you give the sales team the opportunity to kind of recycle leads. So if they get some leads and they consider these leads not really ready to be reached out to, they can just recycle them and implement them back into the scoring process to reach out to them later once they are again considered qualified leads. Then also a nice idea is to work with a fit and an engagement score. Basically, the fit score is about the attributes of a lead because this will tell us is the lead actually does the lead fit to our ideal customer profile, and the engagement score is about the activities of a lead and it will tell us, is the lead really interested in our services, in our company? And if you use these two scores, you can also do something quite interesting. You can kind of build a matrix. And for example, here we have the leads with a super high engagement score and a super high fit score, and the A1 leads, and these are the leads with the highest priority. So sales can reach out to them first. And then we have these leads, which are also quite high quality. So our sales team can reach out to them second, and so on. So this is really quite useful. Then another recommendation is to use a decay model. A decay model makes basically sure that you, for example, if a lead hasn't been active for 2 years, but was quite active before, that they're not considered active leads anymore, like high quality leads anymore. So after a certain amount of time, you deduce points from the score to make sure, yeah, that we know that these leads are not really hot leads anymore. And also it makes sense to update your scorecard now and then. Okay, so let's go on with predictive lead scoring in Mautic. Step number one, basically what I wanted to add, I'm now expert in predictive lead scoring. So when I started my master thesis, I had a little background in Python. Like it's the code I used for predictive lead scoring. So even if you're not super experienced with coding, you can make it happen. Yeah, so step number one is gathering and preparing data of your past leads. This can be done by exporting data from Mautic. I would export them because you also, to prepare the data, you need some external software. And yeah, I use Python code for this. And I will show you on the next slide also how exactly it looked like preparing the data. Then in step number two, we also need to make sure to get the rating of the quality for each past lead. This can be, as I told you, this lead bought versus this lead didn't buy, or rating from 1 to 10. Whatever, you can be creative there. And once we have these two pieces of data in place, we can then fill the machine learning model with it, train the machine learning model with it. And I will show you an example. During my master thesis, I worked with data from a real online shop using Mautic. And after using a SQL statement to export the data from Mautic, I had kind of this data structure. It's a bit simplified, but it will do. So it were all entries about lead activities. So website clicks, page hits. There wasn't a lot more data available besides it, so I had to stick to this one. Besides this, I had some data about the lead coming with each page hit. First of all, the lead list ID, which refers to the segment. We had the segment 10 and the segment 9. The segment 10 was actually for leads that purchased, and the segment 9 was for leads that didn't yet purchase. Then we had the column lead ID to identify leads, and also there could be multiple entries for one lead in this table because every entry is just about one page hit. Then we had the date last active for leads that didn't purchase, and the purchase date for leads that did purchase. I use this one to, first of all, filter out page hits that happened after a lead purchased. And I also used it later to calculate the time a lead was added until he or she bought or was last active. Then there was also date of the hit, as I told you, for sorting out page hit that happened after the purchase because they weren't really relevant. The date added, like when the lead was added to Mautic, and there was the confirmed opt-out date, so if a lead unsubscribed. And after preparing this data, I had a completely different structure. Basically, because I figured out after cleaning the URLs, there were about, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 different URLs. And with so many different URLs, you wouldn't be able to train a machine learning model. But I figured out there were some keywords in each URL, which helped me to assign each URL to a category. And so I figured out in the prepared data, I want to have a row for each lead. And there I want to have written down how many times they visited one category of page. So for example, here we first have the total page hits, and then we see that this lead was visited info page 2 times, and kind of a browsing page 4 times. Then we also see that this lead was added to Mautic like 3 years ago, close to 3 years. The lead has opted out. And also what we see there, that the lead is actually not a customer, like the lead didn't convert. And basically this data was enough to fill a machine learning model then. And yeah, for training the machine learning model, filling data, I also used Python code. There's this library called scikit-learn, and it helps you to figure out the right algorithm for your machine learning model that performs best, and then to save the trained machine learning model. And next, you can export the data of your new leads from Mautic. You can prepare it the same way that you did before for the training data, and then you can apply it to the lead scoring model. And then you will get from the lead scoring model a quality prediction for your lead. Basically, in my code, I configured it this way that I got the lead ID and the prediction out of the model. And then I added a prediction custom field in Mautic. And then I could import this outcome from the model by mapping the lead ID to the lead ID in Mautic and the prediction to the new custom field. Yeah, and then you can provide high quality leads, like leads that were predicted high quality with specific measures, like for example, via campaigns or point triggers. So there are also 2 recommendations for predictive lead scoring. First of all, I would recommend also to implement this kind of feedback loop. I already talked about this for traditional lead scoring. And you should also now and then update your machine learning model because things can change. So yeah, update it regularly. The last thing I will talk about is comparing traditional and predictive lead scoring. So basically I have this table there, which tells you about the differences. First of all, traditional lead scoring is not really based on data, it's more subjective. Like you analyze your data, but at the end it will be experts who assign point values to your scorecard. Whilst predictive lead scoring is 100% based on data, and this is an advantage. Then in lead scoring, there's no need for past data. You can start it at any time. Whilst in predictive lead scoring, you need past data in order to train the model. Then the biggest advantage of predictive lead scoring, it is able to recognize complex relationships within data. This means, for example, you have these 3 actions, and if one lead executes exactly these 3 actions, it is super likely that the lead will become a customer. For example, if the lead downloads this white paper, visits this page, and submits this form. And in traditional lead scoring, you would only get the points for these actions. But in predictive lead scoring, the model would realize, okay, these 3 actions are always executed by our customers. So this lead will become a customer very likely. Then traditional lead scoring is more transparent. It's completely transparent because of the scorecard, while predictive lead scoring is kind of a black box. So that's a disadvantage. The output of traditional lead scoring is a score, whilst the output of predictive lead scoring depends on with which data you train the lead scoring model. For example, with a score from 1 to 10, or became customer versus didn't become customer. So this will affect the output of your lead scoring model. And the next point, this is no universal rule. It's just what the results from my test for the online shop about the accuracy of the prediction of both models. There was the traditional lead scoring models, and it predicted with accuracy of around 77% whether a lead would become a customer or wouldn't become a customer. And for predictive lead scoring, and this was super interesting, it was actually predicted with around 95% accuracy whether the lead became a customer or didn't become a customer. I was impressed by this. I didn't expect it, but when I compared it to other data, it seems like these results can be achieved often and not just in specific cases. Yeah, there's a little graphic about the performance of both models. I will skip this one. I think it will get a little bit too technical. And yeah, the last slide. I will give my opinion on which lead scoring approach is the best one, the traditional one or the predictive one. And this basically depends on your objective because, yeah, of course, predictive lead scoring is super accurate. It will save your sales team a lot of time because it will only predict leads that are super likely to become customer. But what if you want to also consider leads that are kind of, it's possible that they will become customers, but it's like not a super high guarantee, then it might make sense to go for a traditional approach. Another thing is that it also depends whether you have past data available, because you can't build a machine learning model without past data. And the third point, it also depends on your willingness to invest time in getting familiar with machine learning. Yeah, and so this is basically my conclusion on which approach for lead scoring is the best one. And with this conclusion, I'm ready for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jonas. That was really interesting. I mean, I knew your project, but I assume lots of the folks listening here maybe not heard about predictive lead scoring before, never dove deep into it. So thanks a lot already. And I already see many questions popping up in the Q&A section. And I will just start with the first one. Patrick is asking, what improvements would you like to see for Mautic's lead scoring capabilities?
That's actually a super good question. Right now, most things are in place, but what I figured out might be a problem is if you work with multiple lead scoring systems, like multiple scores. Since Mautic 5, this is possible. It's great. However, as I told you, if you want to recycle leads, to put them back into the lead scoring process, it's also necessary to reset their score. And it's actually not yet possible to reset the score via campaign action. So I had to create a workaround campaign where I checked like iteratively. I did subtracted 1 point from the lead and I checked if it was actually reset to 0 or 50. That was not that good of a solution yet. And I also figured out that there were some problems in account-based scoring on a company level. But as you might have seen in the presentations yesterday, there are actually now plugins available which implement exactly this account-based marketing functionalities in Mautic, including also account-based scoring, like on a company level.
Yep, really cool. I'll mark this question as answered and just follow with the next one. Trevor said, it sounds like predictive lead scoring requires a significant amount of extra effort versus traditional lead scoring and experience with machine learning. How much extra effort in hours did the predictive method take?
Mm-hmm. It's basically, if you want, the most of the effort is preparing the data. Actually, like training the model is actually not that much of an effort using scikit-learn. I would say it depends. If you don't have any experience in Python yet, you might get familiar with it. But I'd say you could do it in maybe a few days to develop the machine learning model. Yeah, I would say it should be feasible in a week if you have some, or like also like 2 days if you're super experienced with Python.
That's impressive. I thought it would take much longer.
Yeah, it's basically the data preparation. What could take a lot of time is to improve your model and assure that there's really no kind of bug in your model, that you actually consider data which kind of has a bad influence on your model. Yeah, then I would say you will need a test period where you also optimize the machine learning model to make sure it's really a solid one.
Okay, thank you. I'll go through it quickly because there's so many questions. Samantha is asking if you could recommend a minimum size for the training data pool for your model training.
Okay. Yeah, there's this thumb rule in called like machine learning. Mm. And it depends on how many columns has your training data. And the minimum sample size you need for training is actually 10 times the number of columns. So if you have 10 columns you want to train your data with, your model with, a thumb rule would be you'd need at least data of 100 leads.
It's actually not that much.
Yeah, it was also a surprise for me. But of course, the more data, the better.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And Philip is asking, is it possible to use another MLM, local or online MLM? I have no clue what MLM means. Machine learning model, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you refer to using the Python machine learning model. Yeah, it's like actually you can use whichever ever machine learning model you choose. You can do it in which software you prefer. You can use different algorithms if you mean this by machine learning model. So yeah, if you can also clarify it real quick. I hope I answer your question as expected.
Okay. And there's another one. Lola is asking if there are any methods to create documentation pages for end users in the Mautic interface, e.g. for traditional scoring to document the scorecard.
I think there is actually. Oh no, it's not completely in the like. There's a light documentation already in the Mautic documentation, but that's a good point. I think we should implement a solid documentation. There is actually a blog post on on the page of Leucht for Digital Marketing, which explains the topic. Also, if you want to dive deeper in it, within this blog post, there's the link to my master's thesis, where you can see all the code I used to prepare the model and see a bit more campaigns I used. So this might also be quite interesting. I don't have the link prepared right now,
I do have
but
it.
you have it. Oh, great! Great! You're well prepared.
However, I'm not quite sure if that really was what Lola was asking for,
Oh,
or if she was asking if you could implement like your own menu item into the Mautic interface, so then the user of the Mautic instance can see the scorecard for this specific client that's using this Mautic. And if that was the question, I could say yes. That's also possible, Lola. There is a plugin for it. I don't remember the name, but I could do research afterwards, which allows you to add your own items to the Mautic menu. Literally. Let me check the chat. Nothing new here. I don't know if people are still with us. So, folks, if you have any questions left or any comments, thoughts, this is your last chance. For now, at least. I'm sure Jonas would also answer you on Slack if anything pops up later. Okay. I think that's it. It's a wrap. This was actually the last session in track 1 for not only for today, but for the whole Mautic Conference Global 2024. And I also just received the messages that the other tracks are finishing. So there will be the closing session starting in a couple of minutes. And then we are done. Thank you, Jonas. That was really, really interesting.
yeah, thank you to
So
the audience for all the questions also.
yeah, that's really nice. All right, folks. Thank you very much and see you. Bye bye.
Bye.